It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
I don't know why.
Is it really loud, Mark?
This is the wrong show. Can you believe
really
that I
loud.
did
Turn
that?
that up a little bit.
Oh boy!
I don't know why every time.
You're gonna have to redo this one again.
You know,
Should we? No, we won't redo it because no one will hear that.
This
No
is
one
a
will
mess,
hear that.
Tim. This is like the worst show ever. You know how like we talk about the PHP other guys. They say our show is the worst show ever.
They say our show. Wait. They say our show is the worst show ever.
Yes,
No, they
and
say,
you just proved that right now.
Oh wait. The PHP other guys say our show is the worst show ever.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Did they say that? We need to. Can you find me the episode because I want to play that.
Oh, okay. I will. Yes, I'll clip it.
I want to play. Yeah, we should.
So, but you just proved it right there by like overplaying a previous episode to start our show.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do, and I'm gonna keep playing it because it's 9:00. I've got a 10:00 meeting. We cannot restart this thing.
Oh, we should. Yeah.
So we're just going. That means at the end, I'm going to turn it up and it'll be the bumper music with us talking over ourselves. So that's just how it's going to roll today, folks.
Live to tape, as they say in the industry.
That's what they say. Nobody uses tape anymore, but we'll do that. No, I mean, this is interesting. I've been today I hope to get all the audio uploaded from the last, what is it? 5 episodes, 6 episodes, whatever.
There's a backlog.
Whatever's in the backlog. I hope to get that audio uploaded.
I think we need a sprint board for this, Tim. I think we need to. We need to agile this to be more efficient about our podcast releases.
Yeah, that's definitely going to make me do it faster. That's for sure.
We could have like a podcast review. We could have a stand up before the podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna.
We could do all of the agile ceremonial events.
So those aren't
outside of the podcast to make the podcast more efficient, Tim.
Now you're gonna annoy the agile people, right? Because those aren't agile ceremonies; those are Scrum ceremonies.
Oh, is that? I have no idea what I'm talking about. Because
agile,
Tim, I'm a developer, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a manager. I'm a developer.
Do you do stand-ups and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you how many developers you got on your team right now?
I would say in our team, then kind of outside, there's a couple other, like there's like a data analyst and also a Salesforce administrator. That joins our stand-up. So I would say probably about 6
people in your stand-up.
Yeah, I'd say about 6.
Okay.
But then we also have a couple managers who join in to kind of make sure that we're
a couple managers.
A few managers, yeah.
A few managers? How many? So
one thing I would say,
out of the 6 people,
I would say, I think when it comes to the stand-up, my company does do it well. It is relatively efficient. It doesn't drag on because you've been involved with stand-ups before companies where it feels like a 10 or 15 minute stand-up will turn into like a 1 hour, I don't know, group chat.
It depends. Yeah, and it depends on. Sometimes that's useful, sometimes it's not, right? It depends on what that group chat is. If that group chat is just about, well, should we do this? Should we do that? But if that group chat, if it's like, here's the stand-up and I have a problem, then it's like, okay, well, a couple of us will stay and we'll help solve that problem.
One thing, my direct development team has incorporated is we do a pre-stand-up.
The stand-up of the stand-ups?
The pre-stand-up.
The pre-stand-up. What do you do in a pre-stand-up? You sit down?
No, we call it like a sync-up.
A sync up. This is the sync up before the stand up.
Yeah, we made this up. It wasn't me. It was another. Okay. It's actually a guy that reminds me a lot of you.
Oh boy,
it's funny when I'm working with every day. He's like the North Carolina version of you.
The North Carolina version of him. I will. All right, I don't know if I'll break protocol here, but I got to say that you remind me a whole lot of JC or John on the PHP Ugly podcast. Yeah. So I feel like that relationship is similar, at least from my perspective.
Hey, maybe eventually when I can get out to a PHP conference, me and John can start to hang out. I think we will get along.
Yeah, much more than you and Eric. I feel like that's not going to work.
Eric doesn't like me at all. He's the one that says our podcast is the worst podcast ever.
It is though, isn't it though? I mean, we are not going for the medals in the podcasting industry. No. So that's
what we do a sync up. We call it a sync up because actually it's just honestly it's like what we kind of just kind of say hi in the morning. Which actually I kind of appreciate, because when you work remotely and you just meet each other for either the Scrum ceremonial meetings that we have or the other variety of meetings that we have.
Scrum? Is that what it is? You have a Scrum Master?
Yes.
And all that? Yeah. Okay, that's
Yeah.
Scrum then. So all that ceremonies is Scrum.
So we and the variety of meetings we have with the business and everything that go on every day. But what we do is we meet like for 15 minutes before the stand up just to kind of check in with each other, see how everybody's doing. And sometimes we talk about work, sometimes we don't. It's kind of good because I kind of miss that going in the office. Talked about this many times before that I kind of miss going back in the office and seeing people face to face. So I am a little bit of an extrovert, or have a little bit of an extrovert side to me. So I miss that. So just checking in with each other casually before we do stand up, and then kind of get into the nitty gritty. And
do you use the same meeting room or like space or whatever, however you meet?
Well, we use Teams, so we just have a separate.
You have a separate one, so you go from whatever this is to
Yeah.
your actual stand up.
Yep.
I don't know. That just strikes me as interesting because sometimes, and I see the dynamic on different groups of people doing stand-ups. Sometimes it's very much like, hey, we're gonna do the stand-up, we're done. Other times it's like, hey, let's also there's this desire to talk a little bit about like what's going on in our lives. And I find that it could be interesting instead of like kind of couch that at the end of the stand-up. It's like, all right, we did the stand-up stuff. Now, if anybody wants to hang around and talk a little bit, catch up, that's fine.
Yeah.
Versus putting it at the beginning. It's like, oh yeah, because then we're here, and when you hit whatever the stand-up time is, you can just, all right, we're gonna start the stand-up now. And if you felt like you had the time to, and you wanted to hang out with people, and you want to talk a little bit, you get there early. I like that. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
If you can roll it together, I think would be interesting. But yeah.
Well, we like to kind of keep it tight, right? With our core team, a core dev team that we have, we kind of like to keep it tight, just us.
So this is just the smaller group before the group of 7, which is also a small group. So,
well, if you added in the product managers, scrum managers, the stand-up can kind of grow,
So how many people are in your stand-up?
I would say it's averages between 7 to 10, depending
7 to 10
who shows up. Yeah.
Okay, this is I appreciate this a lot now, because now I can ask you questions that are,
and this
that
stuff
are
I can talk about. Yeah, project manager, I can talk about that.
Okay.
No, but I was saying, I think actually my company does do a pretty good job. I think they're pretty efficient about the stand-ups. And then we've actually tried to reduce some of the the other ceremonial meetings that we have to try to, keep the meetings. So we also find we get dragged into business meetings all the time for just doing product updates or feature updates or support, product support tasks that we have to kind of work through together. So yeah, and if you have like your Outlook or Teams calendar, or what do you guys use for a calendaring system?
Google Calendar.
Cool. Okay. Whatever your calendar is that you use, you can see that gets just stacked up with meetings. Then when you have time to code, Tim, there's no time to code.
So that's interesting. Man, so many places to go.
Oh, we could go everywhere, Tim.
I wanted to talk.
I'm awake this morning.
Apparently, I wanted to talk. What's in that coffee, Mark? I want to talk a little bit about how getting the audio of the podcast online and struggling with the AI summaries, because every time I give it the AI summaries, it starts out with Tim struggles with Linux audio issues. I'm like, I am not talking about that at the beginning of every show. Am I?
You are.
Is it every
well,
show?
There's always some type of audio issue we're dealing with at the beginning of the show. And then we eventually talk about why can't the AI fix this for us?
Right, but then we don't talk about it Linux all the time, do we? This is all right. Okay.
Sometimes we drop a Linux comment here or there.
Not every time. I feel like I feel like it's. I need to get like some.
Usually I blame the audio issues on your Linux setup. I think that's what I usually do.
I think that's usually what happens. Yeah. But I think I need to start a new. I'm actually experimenting by throwing the transcript data into ChatGPT instead of using the transcripts AI, because that's something weird happened with that last time I tried to do it. So I think I need to start a new chat every time, because I think it's remembering that the last episode I gave it had audio issues with Linux, and they're just like, oh, let's just pile onto this Linux stuff. It seems like that's a topic they talked of. So I'm struggling through that. But I liked where you were going with the when do you have time to do development work with all the meetings. And that's interesting, because there's a movement, at least it's been interesting for me to see. Have you heard all like the I don't know what it is, like people talking about developer experience lately, Mark?
Well, weren't you a professional developer experience advocate?
I was ready for like professional developer experience, sir. I wasn't sure where how that was.
Well, you were a developer evangelist. So
Yes,
that, in a sense, is a developer advocate,
and
right?
and I think the community soured on the developer evangelist, and they went to like developer advocate, and then there was people that were interested in developer experience, and it was
So
all
I
around.
think you are an expert at the developer experience.
Well, that's what's interesting to me when I'm seeing is because this term is coming back up, and the reason why I find it interesting is when I talked about it, it was how developers experience your product. So if you're selling a developer product, which would be an API, it could be something like a GitHub, it could be something like an IDE, and we'd call it, what's the developer's experience? Usually it was an API, because the API generally had two different selling points, right? Like you had the things that people wanted code to do, right? Like you might take it from a telecommunications API, which is where I used to work, right? People needed to send SMS messages. All right, that's a business case, and here's what we charge, and this is what it's going to cost to use our service. And then there's the whole, like, how hard is it for the developer to integrate with you? And that's, I think, where the developer experience concept came. Similar to like what you're dealing with Salesforce, right? Salesforce is an application, and then there's also a developer experience side of it. We say if you want to come and integrate with Salesforce, which I think you do, right? What is that experience? What is that experience like? Are we making it easy for the developers? Are we making it frustrating for the developers? Because there's that component of, or like that understanding of saying, if we make it hard, it could be the developers just say to their stakeholders, no, we can't do it. They've made this impossible. So we need to make sure that we have built something that has a good developer experience to make it easy for people to integrate with us, because if they integrate with us, they're more likely to stay with us, right? Integrated customers tend not to leave because you're tied into whatever their software is. So that's where I come from with the term of developer experience. But recently, what I've seen is this shift, and they're talking about it as the experience for your development team at a company. In other words, what is the experience of writing software at your company like for your developers? And that's where the meeting question comes in, because that's coming back to the forefront. People talking about, well, do you have any deep work time? Do you have any focus time? And I found those discussions interesting because I'm ambivalent about that, right? In that I can see both. I can see what I want to say. We tend when we talk about that focus time, we tend to think of it almost as siloed time, right? Like, let me go off here and write the code. I need uninterrupted time to think through this problem and come up with a solution.
But sometimes you need to work with somebody else in the solution too.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where I think sometimes we don't have a way to articulate what we mean. Like, maybe don't interrupt me with other things, but for sure, it's better to have 3 developers in a room talking about this instead of one just scratching their head saying, well, should I do this or should I do that? So trying to balance that out with saying, well, are meetings bad? This is my perspective. Recurring meetings are bad. Like, on-demand meetings are good.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like, I don't like recurring. I don't like, if you're scheduled, if you can tell me, here's how I would weigh a calendar. Don't look at what you have on your calendar right now, but go out 2 weeks. And if your calendar's booked, that's wrong.
That's true. Because what in
the world do you know that you need those meetings
exactly
for?
what you're going to discuss in those meetings? Yeah.
So, If you fast forward 2 weeks and you're like, wow, my calendar's still booked, something's wrong. If it's booked this week, maybe something's completely right. Maybe it's not, because then there's that whole like, well, if all of our calendars aren't booked, like maybe we don't even put the meetings in the calendar, right? Because what we do is we go into Slack or Teams or wherever we chat and say, hey, who knows this? And someone says, oh, I know that. And somebody else says, I'm really interested in learning that. And you just ad hoc get together, do a screen share, do some pairing, get it done. And on our team, we encourage not, when we do peer review, because everything's peer reviewed, right? We encourage peer review, which says, instead of me taking my code and saying, here, Mark, can you look at this pull request, add any comments and send it back to me? Because that's horribly inefficient, because I'm going to go start doing something else. And then you're going to give me back that code. I'm going to look at it and try to remember where I was and try to understand what you meant. I say, hey, Mark, how about you come into the Zoom room with me? We look at it together and you give me your feedback in person. And better than that, if you got feedback, why don't we just make the change right here and get it done?
Well, if it's a small change, though, do you really do that for every PR?
No, that's like everything in the world is like process.
You're saying if it's a substantial PR that it's going to take a little bit just to walk through the code. So it's more helpful to have somebody who actually wrote the code to kind of walk through it with you to either discuss it or explain the thought process.
Yeah. If there's the chance that someone's going to see it and say, hey, what are we doing here? Or would this be better? Yeah. Then do that in person, if there's the chance. But like everything, I mean, I feel like it's all like the pirate code. It's more guidelines than code.
So I think I was just looking at my calendar while you're discussing that. And I think, like I said, my company does a pretty good job with the stand-ups. They keep those relatively simple. That is the one consistent meeting that's scheduled almost we don't have it on a Friday. We still do our team sync up on a Friday, but we just do like Monday through Thursday. We do the stand-ups, but then the rest of the meetings, I think they've gotten pretty good that they don't schedule them every week, but they schedule every 2 weeks, which I think that's a little bit of a better balance, like you're talking about. Where they say, okay, if they want to have
a weekly meeting,
like a
product,
like a product meeting, or like just a team meeting that they want to make it a little bit more substantial, and so they can kind of plan ahead for that, say what they would want to discuss, also do updates. So I think every 2 weeks, I think that's kind of a better balance. But I totally agree with you. If you have like a weekly meeting that's scheduled each week, or a variety of meetings that are just scheduled just to have them, then it might be a little bit inefficient, I think, because it does lock up your calendar for those meetings that we talk about. That were like the most valuable meetings are the ones where like, you're working through a problem and say, oh, I need to really meet with this analyst or this product person or another developer that I'm working with, and let's just kind of spend 15 to 30 minutes. Let's work through this issue together and solve it, right? And then if you have an open calendar, you have time for that then.
And even if it's like what are the recurring meetings for? What are they for? Because sometimes it's like, well, we should meet every 2 weeks. To do what?
To keep the train moving, Tim. Got to keep the locomotive. They got to keep the engine running.
But why isn't it moving without that meeting? Meaning, like, why, if there's something that you need from me, why aren't you just asking me at the time? And not, because the other thing that recurring meetings do is, oh, you know what, we'll figure that out when we have our meeting next Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Well, if it's not important enough to figure out until next Wednesday, is it important? And if it is something that's important, why aren't we figuring it out now? Why are we intentionally deferring it to some other arbitrary date? So I just think more like collaboration in real time is better than kind of, oh, I think we figured out if we do this every 2 weeks, that's a good. Now, I'm not saying that those meetings don't make sense in particular contexts, right? But I think we too often go, oh, you know what? This is a good thing. This meeting was good when we talked about this topic. We should do this once a month. Should we, though?
How many people work at your company again?
80 something.
Oh, wait. Okay. So, I think it's up to maybe 55, 60, maybe up to 60 now for me. Yeah. I was just curious, like the type of meeting I was also thinking about that it was pretty consistent when I first started. And then as we've been kind of focused on transitioning off of the AWS, solution consultants that we've been kind of working with, we haven't been doing this meeting as much, but having like a feature release meeting, with the business kind of end of or business people that would be, managing that more like from an executive standpoint, kind of showing what you worked on over the past, couple weeks or month, or depending upon how long the feature set you work on. Do you do something similar? We might have like a feature release meeting where you kind of say, okay, to demo what you've built, the benefits, maybe discuss pros and cons, future considerations.
No, not really. I mean, we do stuff similar to that in our stand-ups, right? Like, so it may be something that says, hey, we're wrapping this up. Okay, can we do a demo on the stand-up tomorrow? Great.
Oh, so you do. So your stand-ups can be a little bit longer then if you're going to do demos and walkthroughs.
Yeah, we'll just tack it on the end. We'll be like, okay, so
that's something
after we do the stand-up.
Because I find if you start doing that, then the stand-up's going to start getting long.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's obviously something you don't do every day.
Okay.
It's like you've got your stand-up and then you're like, oh yeah, can we demo that after the stand-up? Great. Yeah, because usually everybody's calendar is free after stand-up because we don't have a lot of meetings.
Yeah, there you go. Look at this. We're even making this podcast more efficient just by talking about.
You're right. I'm going to start.
Like I said, Tim, if you
want a Jira board with a bunch of statuses.
There you go.
This podcast is currently in progress, and then as soon as it's done, I'll move it over to processing as I download the files.
We need a backlog or an icebox.
Icebox of topics.
Deferred.
Oh,
we need a staging, a test, QA. I think we need to QA this podcast too.
Episode 83 won't release. Speaking of episode 83, what are we at? We're at 86. So 84. I was looking through.
What are we gonna do for episode 100? We're gonna have to like a party or something.
If
like that.
we get there,
we should do it in person again. I should come out to the Lytle Farm, and we should do we should do a in-person 100th episode podcast. And
at 8 o'clock in the morning. Or 9 o'clock in the morning. Whatever crazy
do
time
another day.
Yeah. I was gonna say this one's not gonna.
Maybe we could do if we schedule it, because maybe we could do like I could come over for dinner. We could do like a little little Friday dinner thing with the family. Then we could do podcast around that.
Do some podcast and pizza. Actually, Friday.
One thing I want to talk about, Mr. Cooking Video person here that I saw.
Mr. Cooking Video person.
I think
what you mean is a culinary influencer.
Yeah, an influencer. I was right. So I saw the video you posted on YouTube. Did you post on Twitter too?
I linked.
So you post this long. How was it? Like 30 minutes?
30 minutes. This thing is like 5 minutes, 4.5.
Okay, it felt like 30 minutes.
It felt like 30 minutes. It's like a Kevin Costner film.
But no, it actually was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining. But the part that I enjoyed the most was watching your family's reactions to you doing this. So
that's the best.
You were doing this like first person view of you cooking breakfast over your big grill, right?
Yeah. Now technically it was brunch. Because as my daughter said, we only had an apple and peanut butter and then went on a hike. I'm hungry.
And I would say you were doing a great job explaining what you're doing. Add a little color commentary while you were cooking, so that was good. And you talked about it was much more efficient. You're actually using a GoPro like harness or something like that. Because you're trying to hold the phone where you're trying to use spatulas and trying to cook over the grill. It could be kind of difficult. But I liked how the format that you're doing. But the funniest thing about it was like seeing your daughter's reactions to it. There was like. Your one daughter was like totally repulsed. She's like, Dad, why are you like recording this? What are you doing this? And you're recording me right now? Stop this. Just stop right now.
Yeah.
And then you have your other kids, and you do because you do have a big family, Tim. So you do have a lot of good input and a lot of reactions. And then you have some of your other kids who are like, oh, you got a kick out of it. It's like, Dad, you're just being crazy. Whatever. You just recorded and some even liked it. They kind of, participated a little bit.
That second set, I don't think I have a video. I don't think I have a video of it, but years ago. So the daughter who wasn't putting her hands in front of the camera, right? Mm-hmm. Years ago, the one that was talking about breakfast and how she was hungry because we went on a hike and all that. I gotta say, it's 5-6 years ago, something like that. We're driving home from someplace, and she had the visor pulled down in the car, right? And the mirror thing flipped up so you could see the mirror, and she's looking into the mirror, and she goes like, comment, or subscribe. And I was like, oh, great. What have we done here?
She's learning young.
Yeah.
And you're even what you're doing too now. You're also influencing that by doing some of your own streams, your own videos that posting to YouTube. And
look at that.
She's gonna want to do like hike videos and like,
oh boy,
maybe gardening videos or whatever she's into, or crafts or whatever.
So that's the one that's in the middle
putting Legos together, which I think that was another video that you did a little bit ago, I think too.
Did I put Legos together?
Or maybe you just tweeted about it.
I had some.
You didn't put a video about it, but you tweeted about it.
No, I put some. I don't do many videos because videos are tough because you can't do videos live to tape, right? I mean, you can. Obviously,
you could.
We kind of do.
If you want to stream it,
but
that's what we do.
Nobody wants to watch the entire time that you're cooking breakfast. So then you have to edit it, and editing is the worst. I don't like editing.
Yeah,
I like the idea of content. I don't like the editing, and I'm guessing that's probably what a lot of content creators feel like once they start doing it. Is my guess. Is that capturing the content.
Yeah, I hate it. I agree with you because when I was doing a lot of lecture videos when I was teaching.
Oh yeah.
I actually liked doing the lecture videos. Actually, I liked recording myself, but at the same time, I hated the editing. I hated the editing so much that if I was doing like a 30-minute lecture or hour, whatever, and if I messed up 10 minutes in, I would restart it.
Just to avoid having to edit something out. Yeah.
I was trying to think, okay, if I do this enough times, like, so if I have to repeat this process over and over again, like every 2 or 5 minutes where I start it and I mess up saying something, doing introduction or whatever, and eventually I'll get it right, but I don't know, never did. But But it's a vicious cycle. If you really do not want to edit and you want to try to be
Yep.
as clear as possible, all the way through, especially if you're trying to do something that's a little bit longer, like a 20, 30-minute video, it's some work.
Yeah.
And I'm also not the type to like write. It's some YouTubers that, they script everything out and they'll read it or they'll practice it before they actually do the recording. And I never did that, just like we do the show. We don't discuss what we're going to talk about. We don't have a list of topics that we talk about. We're just doing this on the fly. So
when I used to do promo videos, for like
it's the most entertaining way to probably listen to a podcast, but hey, this is what it is.
Yeah. When I used to do dev contest promo videos for Nexmo, I wouldn't necessarily have a script. I'd have like an idea, right? But it'd be the same thing. It's like a 5-minute video, if that. Like I just had to explain what you're doing, promo the thing. Try to do it on a white background to make it easy to put me in different places. And man, I'd do so many takes.
Yeah.
So many takes.
And then if you try to make shorter videos, because say, okay, if I make like a 5-minute video or 8-minute video, then I'll even if I have to restart it, it'll be less time it takes to make the video. But then what happens though, then let's say you have to do multiple videos and then post 3 or 4 videos for a lesson. Then you have to post each one of them individually and, upload them. And yeah, that's pain.
Yep. The editing
video
process
is tough. It is.
Editing process.
That's why the YouTubers, they get paid the big bucks to, unlike us.
Do they get to pay the big bucks?
Yeah, you following.
I was not aware of the big bucks going there, but
like, comment, and subscribe.
There you go. Hey, we're on YouTube.
And nobody comments, and subscribes for us.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. So I don't even know. Let's see what to do. No, nobody's chatted. We're just yelling into the void. And that's what we do, Mark, every Friday. But anyway.
So have you been doing any coding? You talked about the developer experience. Have you been doing any coding or developing over the past week or so? Working on anything? I know you can't get into details about it, but just generally, have you been doing anything interesting?
Not a lot of code that I'm writing.
You reviewing? Doing a lot of code reviews?
Yeah, right now I'm doing more, and not. I wouldn't even say review. It's more pairing. It's more like jumping in, trying to help when we run into roadblocks and different things, because I tend to be familiar with some of the code that we're touching. Trying to think, did I do it? Is there any code that I wrote? There's stuff that I should be writing. There's that. Oh yeah, I fixed a couple things, like a couple bugs, but.
And then we talked about this before. You guys use the JetBrains IDE that you can kind of do like a co-pair, like a
lot of the team does. We don't require it to be used.
So you just don't do like a screen share and just share each other's screens and kind of just watch and comment or anything like that. What's your preferred method when you're doing
a lot of
code
times
reviews?
that is pretty much what we do. There are some times when it's going to be like a, I don't know, high intensity pairing session. I don't know what you want to call it, but like where you feel like both parties are probably going to want to write a lot of code. That will try to do a code with me. I guess it's like if I'm not driving and it feels like I'm going to have to describe how to get around in the code or describe code concepts, then yeah, let's do a code with me so I can kind of jump in every once in a while and just show you what I'm talking about because I'm typing. That said, a lot of the times when I'm asked to pair on a problem, it's the other person that's driving because it's their IDE, they're doing the work. And that's where it might be useful if I'd say, hey, can you do a code with me? And I can kind of take over where you're at. But a lot of times when we do code review, if I'm reviewing the code, I'm bringing it up in my IDE and I'm looking through it in my tooling. And then if there's anything that I'm like, hey, you know what, we should change this, I'm making the change, which is in my opinion, one of the values of doing pair review the way we do it in real time is because that really puts it on me. Like it's one thing during a pair review to say, hey, you know what you could have done here? We could have introduced this concept, or we could have used a factory, or we could have, whatever you might put in a code review comment as you're going through someone else's code. But when you're doing it live with that person and the code is open in your IDE, then it's really clear. It's like, is it worth the time for you to do the thing you're suggesting right now? Because if not, probably just file that away as a future improvement. And if it is, then just do it right now. And it makes those type of changes. Because I don't know, have you ever got code review that was like someone saying, well, you could have done this and this and this instead. And it's kind of like, well, should I go back and spend the time to do that refactor now? Should we refactor it later? I don't know. You just kind of like told me, I think this would be better, and left it up to me to understand, even if it's worth doing now.
Yeah. Because there's a trade-off. It's going to take more time. If you do need to do a refactor in a specific way, that's, not, might take a little bit more work than the way that you initially did it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when that's happening as a conversation that you're both doing while you look at the code together, to me, it becomes far easier to understand if you should do it or not. And that's like, if the two of us can do this right now, then of course do it. If the two of us go, oh, that's too much for us to do, like in this pairing session, then it's probably too much to do. Unless the issue is like, this just doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. This needs to be reworked.
You know what I love about sharing my screen and doing code reviews, especially when I'm showing off my code, Tim?
I don't know.
I just love showing off my TMUX NeoVim setup here.
Goodness, yeah.
Just flying through the screen.
You do a lot of pairs with me with that? Is like somebody can remote into your TMUX and use screen.
Oh, nobody. I'm the only one that uses Vim. Yeah, it's funny. I even got like when I was working with the AWS architects, even because they're the lead architect uses JetBrains, and so he uses like PyCharm Professional and uses WebStorms like that. And he was just talking. He's like, "Oh, Mark, you should I know you're using Vim, but you shouldn't use Vim. You should use like JetBrains. You should use like a real IDE." Yeah. It's like because then you also have AI built into it. I was like, okay. But it was funny. And then also another AWS developer that I was working with who's still with us. He's going to be sort of starting to roll off during the month here. And he's actually a little bit younger too. So it's interesting. He looked at my screen. He's like, "What's with your line numbers?" It's like they look really strange. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's just relative line numbers. It's just a thing."
Don't tell me you use relative line numbers.
Oh, come on.
That is the worst.
It's the best, Tim.
It is the worst.
It's the best because you always know the line number that your cursor's at. Yeah. But if you need to move up 12 lines or down 7 lines, you just hit 7 or 12. G, or actually, I remember the keystrokes. I memorize my fingers, but like, just use your keystrokes and then move automatically down. That's the whole purpose. If you're not using Vim motions, then it doesn't make sense. No, I totally agree.
You know where it really helps? It really helps when you're doing code review. And you're like, yeah, right there on line 13. No, exactly. The other line 13.
Yep.
Yeah, your lower line 13. And then up there, no, it's not 13 now. It's 3 because you moved to the wrong place. Now it's line 3.
That's where it came up because he was like trying to tell me which line to go to.
Yeah,
and he was like looking at my screen, like, how can I do that? It's like I can do some math in my head to like figure this out.
Line 5, I think. Relative line 13. Now it's 12. Yeah. No, those are super helpful.
And so, and if anybody here who doesn't use Vim or NeoVim or even Emacs, whatever, or an IDE, well, all IDEs actually, you can turn this on in JetBrains. I've done this before on
relative lines,
WebStorm, relative line numbers. I've turned this as a feature, but unless you have motions that can allow you to go back and forth between it, all relative line number is it shows you that the number of the line that you're at, but then it'll show you if you want to go up 5, it'll show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above it, or if you want to go below it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 below it, right? So it's kind of naturally kind of moving, and depending upon where you are in the file, there could be a big list of numbers around the line number, but that allows you to just type in the number, then hit like a key to just jump to that number or to that increment or de-increment.
You would never want to just slightly
move
your hand to the right and click where you want to be.
Oh no, try to avoid that at all.
Never want to do that. Like, it's not that invention has been proven time and time to be useful. No,
it slows you down, Tim. Come on,
slows you down. Yeah, slows you down.
Yeah. Okay. So even with Ivan, my TMUX setup is great because I have pretty much multiple sessions. I could just with the keyboard commands, I could just switch between sessions, switch between windows super fast. I could split windows.
Yeah.
It's great.
All the things your IDE makes ridiculously easy, but okay, go ahead.
And as we talked about with AI too, it's interesting where I don't use AI like in the coding as much. Now, if I get really desperate, what I'll do is I will use like Gemini or ChatGPT, and I may copy like a snippet into it to get some feedback, or say, maybe I'm saying, I'm not. I have an issue with this. Maybe it's a bug, or maybe it's just, I don't know. I just need to understand a little bit more to explain it, or think if I'm thinking about doing something this block of code, but I'm not sure how to approach that, then I may copy paste it and just to kind of see what get some feedback on it. But actually not having it built in the IDE, I actually don't miss as much, because it was interesting when I was teaching, I loved it. Because especially if I had to demo something and I wanted to just do it as efficiently as quick as possible. And if I just wanted to have lines that are very repetitive, or I just wanted to kind of just have autocomplete for me automatically, from a lecturing teaching standpoint, it was amazing having GitHub Copilot and have that just turned on, just automatically just kind of write code for me. Because I could talk about it, explain it, and just have the code just kind of just pop up as I'm doing it. But as I'm kind of working day to day, I don't miss it at all. So. Because actually the less actually work that my editor has to do, like I do have, as long as you have like a good like lint server that kind of either with PHP or JavaScript or TypeScript or even with Python. So I'm usually going back between TypeScript and Python. As long as you have a good kind of linting system built into your IDE that can kind of just check some quick syntax, find syntax errors, or also if you need to navigate to find like where references are, so if you want to go to definition and to move between files. As long as you have a system like that, I think that's all you need. Throw out these code IDs. Come on. It makes you stupid.
Yeah. That's what it does.
Which I do worry about.
Makes you stupid fat. What?
I do worry about the younger generation that's growing up on these code editors. I do. I know this is the old cranky.
This is what keeps Mark up at night.
Cranky developer in me talking now. Like get off my lawn and get your AI out of here. But
get your AI off my lawn.
But I do worry about if young developers just get reliant on these, these AI tools built into your editor, and then they have to, either it's going to just lower their knowledge level, or like I said, if they don't have it on a job, then they're going to, not be as proficient.
This conversation here is not at all like the conversation the assembly guys used to say about higher level languages. It's not at all like that, is it?
Well, I think that there is something to be said about having being familiar. The more familiarity, the more that you understand about not only the language or the patterns that you could use and the libraries you're using. Like the more you can kind of understand it and have it innately know how it's working, as much as you can, as much as you can hold in your head, then I think it does level you up. Because if you have to constantly be looking stuff up or just relying on tools that are going to automatically complete it for you, I don't know. You're just going to get fat, Tim. Like if you just remember the movie WALL-E.
WALL-E with the robot?
With the robot, right? So remember how like the planet, like WALL-E was just on a planet like cleaning up garbage because everybody on the planet left. They were there on this like cruise ship.
This is crazy because like I just turned this on for the kids the other night.
Or space station outside.
Watch it, so I don't remember.
Oh, you should. You definitely should watch it now. Right, it's a great movie. I haven't watched it in years, but the one thing I remember about it was the fact of like all of the humans left the Earth because it basically just one big trash bin, right? And then WALL-E and other robots were kind of left behind, or maybe WALL-E was the only one left over, still functioning, that his job was to kind of clean up and move trash around, right? Because all the other humans were on this big cruise ship or space station. I think it was a cruise ship. I can't remember if it was a space station or not. But they were all they did an exercise, they didn't move around. They were just in their chairs that just carried them from place to place, and they became overweight and unhealthy. And then once I think at the end, then they realized, oh, we can actually get out of this chair. We could walk around. We could do things. We could actually be productive. We don't have to have everything being done for us. Because I do think there's some of that could happen where you're going to become a fat, lazy programmer. And I'm saying fat from a weight perspective, even that could happen if you sit too much. But fat from a mind perspective, where you're just not going to really be efficient in how you can think through problems and to kind of work through them yourself without relying on other, automated tools. That was a nice soapbox rant.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Yeah. It wasn't bad. So basically, WALL-E is an allegory of AI, where the chair is AI.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
WALL-E, I don't know what WALL-E is.
That's a good question.
WALL-E's kind of an AI thing.
Well, like I said, I've actually forgot a lot about the movie because I can't remember, how does WALL-E get up to the ship?
I don't know either.
That's why I forget. Where's the connection? I remember him cleaning up the garbage in the beginning of the film.
Right. And he's like, when he does that was the scene I saw. He picks up a diamond ring box, opens it up, grabs
there
the
was like
ring,
that
is
other robot,
throws it,
white,
he's like,
the
I
white
like the hinge.
floating robot that was more
Right.
like a kind of a
Oh,
female
okay.
character. I
Okay,
think
that
sort
sounds
of
right. I don't know what it
felt like a
yeah.
female character, maybe not.
I should bring in one of my kids because
And
we've
somehow,
talked about how good they are on camera and
yeah,
see if they can
exactly.
give us a
Just
quick
bring them
little
on the podcast,
synopsis
Tim.
because they just watched
Maybe
it.
we'll get
Yeah.
another listener. Maybe
Yeah.
have their friends listen.
Have their friends listen. Yeah.
Like, comment, and subscribe, right? But yeah, we should definitely go back and watch it because what is the connection where Wally's on the planet and then gets up to the ship and that transition? But I think it's because he meets another robot. Somehow the other robot brings him up to the ship or something like that. I can't.
Other robot is like, you should come up here to where the people are.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, we should. I'll ask my children. They'll tell me. They'll tell me how it ended.
You know what? Maybe Wally is symbolic of Neovim, Tim.
Okay.
He's just doing the work.
So
just
Wally's
doing the work.
Neovim.
He's very efficient about what he does. He's just doing the work.
AI,
Get it done.
The people are developers.
Yeah.
The trash is.
And then Wally had to go up. Wally looked a little bit rough, a little bit crotchety, a little bit rusted. Which it
happens.
Vim and Neovim could resemble an older tool, right?
Okay.
But then he got back up to the ship and kind of started to show the humans the way of trying to get off their butts and starting to do stuff, right? So if more developers got into Vim,
yeah,
they would be more efficient.
This is a tough argument to counter. I'll give you that.
This is something I think we need your kids' opinions on.
Yeah. Well, I did not wake up this morning thinking, you know what we're going to talk about on the show? It's going to be Wally and how it's really just an allegory for modern development with AI. But I see how we got there. Yeah. So,
and I think you've talked about, you have a site license for an AI. Which AI tool do you use in your group?
We use GitHub Copilot, and I also use JetBrains.
Do you have like the enterprise kind of level, or like
are you talking
account
about
with
Copilot?
Well, with GitHub, because we have an executive or whatever, a corporate GitHub account, and then we were meeting with our GitHub representative, and we're talking about possibly incorporating Copilot, and they were kind of walking us through how Copilot, even though they say everything with Copilot is private, but I'm like, I don't believe that at all.
Of course it is.
But they're trying to say it's extra private, I guess. If you
right, it's even more private if you're on the corporate. I mean, everything's private, but it's more private. How is it more private?
I know. That's why I'm still hesitant about using it.
Private
But you use Copilot, but is it within your kind of corporate accounts? You have to log. You have to kind of, when you want to use Copilot, you have to log into your. You may still log into your GitHub account. That's your personal GitHub account, but it's connected to the organization.
Correct.
So that you can. Yeah.
It's for any developer on our team, they're on our team on GitHub, right? Because the GitHub org, they're part of that, and then we enable Copilot, which just all it means from a corporate standpoint, at least as far as I understand, is some of the configuration of how Copilot works is configured by us. And there's a couple of filters and different things that you put in place to try to.
So you could, if you wanted to, you could lock it down to your own code base. Could you do that? I thought that's what they were trying to go with it. So if you want to really be isolated, you could say, I only want Copilot to really analyze my repos that I have within the organization to keep it as siloed as possible.
But that's a weird silo when you think about it, because what it's saying is we're not bringing in external code. It's not saying that somehow our.
But you could do that, right?
You could.
Yeah.
I think you could. But the whole reason that is just people that are afraid that using AI generated code is going to inadvertently bring in some what do we want to say? I can't remember the word, but licenses. I know licenses, but I forget what the word is for those. Not hostile, but licenses that then are kind of infective, right? Where if you bring in code is it LGPL?
Oh, yes. Okay,
right?
I know what you mean.
The concern is that you're going to inadvertently
have that license kind of roll over into something else,
right?
Just because of the
right.
How it's written.
So that's where you would say, hey, only even consider suggestions from these, from this code. So. I would see
the benefit. That's why I was thinking for like an organization that has a really large code base, and you do know the, I don't know, number of lines or how big your code base is, or all of your repos put together. I have no idea about mine, but
I don't know off the top of my head.
But the one thing that would have been beneficial as I was doing onboarding with this company was because there was a good number of repos, especially there's repos that were maybe should have been archived, and they were kind of more just, prototypes or experimental, but there's still some value in kind of looking to see what they're trying to do with that. But then having a good AI tool to just analyze just the repos within the organization, and then to use as like a search tool. If I wanted to kind of search through, ask a question,
useful, yeah.
That I think would have been helpful to kind of, if I was trying to find something or
Like
just or explain this, like explain me this file within my own repo. What is it actually doing in regards to the whole, either that specific repo or the whole group of repos that we have? How do they work together?
And you could ask the question too, like how do I have a thing that does this, right? Like, this is what I want to accomplish. Is there already a utility function or a lot, like how have we done this in the past, or have we not? And I am coming up with something novel, because that's the frustrating part on a frustrating point with large code bases is when you say, oh yeah, we didn't have a thing that took this and formatted it that way. And someone goes, but we did, you just didn't know about it. So being able to kind of ask AI to analyze an entire code base, whether it be multiple repos, a single repo, and say, do we have something that would accomplish this task, and be able to find those things if they may be buried in some utility function or something that you didn't realize, or maybe a different module or something did very similar, and you should just make it so it's more publicly accessible. I think those type of questions are super useful to be.
Or a tool that I wish worked a lot better. Maybe it does, but I'm just trying it now. And actually, my org does actually have this limited. The Amazon Q. Have you tried to use that?
I've not. I've heard really mixed things on Q.
It's like, and they try to encourage you, saying, "Oh, why don't you like one of those prompts that says list my EC2 instances, and maybe it has some connection with it in your account as long as you have the permissions turned on for that." But I remember when they first released this, or maybe a couple months after, I was super excited about it, because especially if you're let's say, especially if you're studying for an AWS certification exam and you're trying to learn as much as you can through the console and kind of work through it just to understand, it's just because of the variety of services that you have to learn about. And Q does do a good job of just explaining. So if you just want to know some general information about a service, you can ask it questions, and it could give you some interesting answers. But one thing I really wanted Q to do was saying, okay, so especially if it goes back to the onboarding thing, could it like know the context of what I'm looking at in the AWS console and give me information about it? So if I'm in if I'm most likely with what I really need this for was like for permissions for like roles, right? So if I want to have a JSON, formatted document or a role configuration for an IAM permission set, I want it to basically give me access to, this set of resources, and I want to, have this type of permissions. I want to be able to enable that, and I want it to write for me. If I went to Google Copilot and gave it some information, I could probably not Google Copilot. Why do I always say Google Copilot? That's like Google Gemini or GitHub Copilot. If I would go to theirs, I could probably work it out, and often I did. But if I would use Amazon Q, I'm thinking, I'm in the console right now, and Q is built in the console. Why can't it see what I'm looking at and then give me some valuable information around that? And I think that's where they're going with it. But I think they just released it way too early when it first came out. And I was trying to do so much. I got so frustrated by trying to have it help me to understand when I'm looking at the console. And maybe it's gotten better, but interesting. I just tried it right now, and my org has it locked down, so I can't actually use it.
Oh, you can't actually use Q?
Which I actually kind of like, yeah. So it's kind of from a security feature that kind of, for so they can't so Google Copilot can't look at the resources and everything like that. So
not Google Copilot.
Why do I say Amazon that? Q. I don't know why. Why do I do that?
You desperately want Google to own GitHub or something? I don't know.
Google Copilot. I have no idea.
Mark, I can't tell you.
I have no idea. These things. All these AI tools, I have no. They all mesh together for me. So who knows? Because even like Google Gemini, where did Gemini come from? Like, what kind of name is that for AI?
Got me.
Like Copilot, that does make sense. Like that actually is a good name. I totally understand. It's a functional name. It makes sense. I can know what it does just based on the name. Q is also, well, if you're gonna ask it a question, maybe that's
is that what they're going
or for? Q from the Star Trek. Remember Star Trek, the Q from Star Trek? You kind of the know-all.
Yeah.
Godlike character on.
Yeah, who always just created trouble. So I mean, I don't know. Is that what they're going for? Is that what they're going for? Hey.
Well, Jeff Bezos was is a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah, think about like the idea of Q and just the all-knowing Q, all-powerful Q. And but yeah, you always would just cause trouble. And
just causes trouble. Yeah, for the fun of it. So yeah, no, okay. That's an interesting product decision. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left before I have to turn up the audio of our old show and hear the bumper music so it syncs right with the new show. So those of you who might be listening to this once I upload it eventually someday, who knows when, you won't realize the fact that
maybe Tim's kids will eventually upload it. When they find this recording, they've not been uploaded yet, and they'll say like, comment, and subscribe. That's what my dad did.
That's what we did. Yes, we do. So yeah, you should hear just normal bumper music, but everybody else that's listening live, I mean, all one of you, two of you, however many it might be, or watching the video,
did you get a new set of glasses?
I've had these for like a year.
Oh, maybe I just haven't noticed. Well, I'm so used to you wearing like the yellow tinted gunner glasses or whatever yeah. But they're like they had like the black frames around it. I didn't
right.
For some reason
So you're used to like these gunners, right?
Yeah.
Those gunners, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
You got some thick frames there.
These are the Tony
leveling
Stark,
up there.
The Tony Stark edition, the Iron Man gunners. So, and they come. I mean, I don't not a. What do I want to say? Not a sponsor, but see, Stark Enterprises.
So do the gunners make you more efficient programmer, Tim? Does it just make the code just kind of just melt into your head?
I mean,
as it comes through the glasses into your eyes, and it just makes it just look all rosy and clear.
Exactly what it is. No. I mean, it helps. I think it helps with the blue light. The other thing is they're very, very light. So I know I've got earbuds in now. So if you have headphones, they work.
Oh, when you say light, you mean actually they feel light in your head?
They're very light, yes.
The one thing but from a color perspective, because you do have like a yellow tint that you see through. So do you feel ever kind of, because I never, from a teaching perspective, because I taught a lot of graphic design, I would never wear tinted glasses because it throws off the colors on what you're doing. So also, if you're going to be, well, also really, I stopped using too, because if depending upon the color scheme of your editor, you could throw that off too, because I like my nice pretty color scheme. So
it doesn't throw it off that much, Mark.
I'm very specific about color, Tim.
They're not that yellow.
I like my greens, my purples, my magentas. I like them. Yeah. I like them popping on the screen.
That happened to me. I installed the latest version of PHP Storm, and due to some other things, it like reset my color highlighting selection, and I was like, I can't even understand code.
What color scheme do you use? We never talked about this.
I use the Atom 1 dark.
Atom 1 dark. So you're a dark theme. That's good.
Yeah.
What do you like about the Atom 1?
I don't know. I just, whatever I turned on, I liked it. And
you just kept with it. Did you shop around? Did you like try different themes?
If I change it, like when they changed it back to whatever their normal code highlighting colors were, it's like I was like, I don't know what this code is. I don't understand it. I don't know what these words mean. Because they're not the color. Like methods aren't the color that they normally are. Class names aren't the color that they normally are. So I couldn't read a thing.
Yeah, once you went through that, it's kind of hard to switch off.
So
I like
the
Dracula theme, Tim.
Yeah, that's what they changed me to, back to Dracula, and I couldn't understand anything because it wasn't the right color.
It's so pretty. It's the best combination. Yeah. It's light purples.
So I'm gonna have to retitle
bright greens. It just makes the screen look like candy, Tim. And you combine that with my NeoVim and TMUX setup. Oh my gosh, you're like in programmer heaven.
Oh, come on. So I don't know what title I'm gonna have to come up with for this show, but it's not gonna be the title that I gave it. Yeah, programmer heaven. That's what we'll do. We'll retitle this one, scratch it out. Next week will be this title. This week will be programmer heaven, and episode 86. Because we had ended up last episode. We'll maybe end up this episode. You're talking about the charter school.
Yeah.
And I thought we might get into that a little bit.
We got a few minutes here.
We've got all of 6 minutes, right? So I don't know. You were talking about why you went with the charter school.
Maybe we can definitely get into the state of schools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You talked about how your kids are homeschooled.
Yeah. Do we want to get into this now with 5 minutes left?
Yeah, it's gonna be a longer discussion here. Well, I made a comment about it. I was actually impressed because I was skeptical. My daughter, because of issues at her school, and we don't have time to get into that. Also, I don't know if I want to get into that publicly. Just more social, a lot of social issues and stuff going on. When she was at school academically, she never had issues, but socially, there's some issues here or there. And the school, I try to work with the school, and schools are just they may help, they may not, and more often they don't.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you're trying to help out your kid and have them adapt and kind of work through school issues, sometimes you have some helpful administrators and teachers, and sometimes you don't. So she suggested it, and I was like, I don't know about this because
Wait,
we actually
your daughter?
yes, because
Okay.
I've talked about before. I went through a house fire
Mhm.
a good number of years ago. Well, not a good number of years, but what, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And after that, she had a rough time, and we actually she switched to an online school to finish up her year of her middle school, and then so then she transitioned when she went to high school. Then she went back to in person at a high school,
Okay.
and then but it seemed like a really bad experience. It was like the way like the teachers, the interfaces, like the way they did like the scheduling online, their classes, how they handled that. I was not impressed at all, and I think it was kind of not very beneficial to her. So I was super skeptical about her, but it was her suggestion of like wanting to do this again. I was like, all right, well, as long as we can kind of set up some rules, some boundaries, and some expectations about how we're going to do this from a weekly scheduling standpoint and how she's kind of work through and kind of manage her classes, everything like that. But one thing I was actually surprised with this charter school, it is an online charter school. It's based out of Philadelphia, and they actually have an in-person campus that I think they just opened up. So they kind of do a little bit of both, but it basically just was an online only charter school, and they do a really good job of their they use Canvas, and they use like a pretty good setup, and they use a configuration of Canvas that I think actually works out pretty well. And the teachers they hold like synchronous classes every day. So it's a combination of either asynchronous, work, and then with some Zoom sessions, synchronous classes. And then the kids seem to be all relatively good about participating in those, all have their cameras on. And so it's been not a bad experience.
Nice.
But
Nice.
but I still also have the experience of like being sort of a homeschool dad, in the sense of like, yeah, it's kind of questions come up and she doesn't understand work, and you kind of have to walk them through. And I think, but some of the resources they have online and the textbooks they use actually are pretty good. So it's been a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually a little unfamiliar since we obviously predate some of the charter stuff. I guess the charter schools were just enabled to be, or in Pennsylvania, they exist as an alternative. Is that I don't even know how that works.
You mean from the public school system?
Yeah.
So it's a state funded that's a good way to put it, like a state funded alternative to public school.
Okay.
They do receive money, some funding, funding from the state. And also it's interesting too, because she was previously going to a charter school that was an in-person only charter school. And if you get accepted to that charter school, which usually depending upon the type of school it is, they may have different criteria, but most often charter schools are meant to also be somewhat open. And so you could actually live outside the school district, and the state actually has to provide you transportation to it. And so the charter school she was going to, that was an in-person one, was actually in another school district about 30 minutes away. And they had to bus her in from that, even though it was outside of the school district. And that was like a state mandate.
Gotcha. So you said when she was accepted, is there additional cost for the charter schools?
No.
So they're just, so if you're like, hey, instead of going to public school, I'd like to go to this charter school. I found out about it
because it's state funded, and that's why some people, Pennsylvania seems to be doing a good. If you kind of liked having other options, other alternatives. I know other states may handle this differently, but I think Pennsylvania is actually doing a pretty good job. But then other people also have an issue with that, because then they see that as taking money away from the public school system. But in a sense, it kind of all is. Charter schools are public too.
Right.
You do have to apply. You do have to, you have to be accepted, but it's usually the standards of getting in are kind of the same as a public school, but it's a little bit, I'd say it's a little bit more restrictive, because they want to know a little bit more about your academic history and maybe your family background. But other than that, though, I think it's pretty open. But they are state funded, just like public schools are.
Gotcha. Well, that's sad. I mean, as a longtime homeschooler, I find that interesting, because it's like I've been paying for school all my life and never going. So
you've been paying for school all your life and never going.
like from a
from a tax standpoint.
yeah.
I mean,
It's like
yes,
I pay
I saw
I pay
somebody
the
online make
same
a post
amount of
about that. Yeah,
taxes as everybody else.
yeah.
But that's what's actually been good about the last couple years with some of my daughters going over and participating in the choir and some of the other music programs at our local high school, is that we're actually able to take advantage of that. And
that's something I'm trying to get her into do too, because they actually do have.
We were talking about.
Are we doing like an overlay of a previous show?
That's all we got. We got 20 seconds left. Like I said, built entirely on AWS.
So this is how we're gonna do. We're gonna do the worst transition in history of podcasts right now.
That's exactly right. And next week,
this is so bad.
Serverless. Continue to talk about it. Who knows?
What was that? What was the point of that?
Wait,
it doesn't stop.
It's the
That's because I was trying to figure out the content of previous shows before we started the show.
Oh, that was just on the deck. You just had it lined up.
I was playing the wrong. I ended up playing the wrong, or it went to the wrong one. Oh, that's right, because I couldn't go back.
Because you had the track for the bump. Well, you replaced that track with they usually use for the bumper.
Yeah, the technique I was using is I'll just play, because it had that hiccup when it starts playing. It's like I'll just play it and I'll hit the back button to go back to the start of the track, and it didn't go back to the start of the track. It went back to the previous track when I was listening to a previous episode. But I still need to keep an hour bumper, because that's how I keep it to an hour, is because the bumper music starts and stops in one long file. So I couldn't change that. So yeah. And once we're in post, it won't be there. But anyway, I got to drop. We'll, with all this, now we've got one listener.
That was the worst. I don't even know why that person's listening. Just stop listening right now.
Just stop listening.
This is like the worst podcast ever.
I love it. All right. I got to drop to another meeting. We'll talk about school next week. So.